Imagine this. You wake up one morning, still a little groggy, grab your phone, and before you've even had your first sip of coffee, you check the price of Bitcoin. Suddenly, your eyes widen. No, you're not dreaming. Bitcoin has just hit $200,000 per coin. But how on earth did we get here? And what does it mean for you, your future, and your long-lost cousin who insisted on paying you back in Bitcoin 5 years ago? Stick around, because we're about to explore exactly what would happen if Bitcoin soared to 200K. And trust me, you won't want to miss a single detail of this wild ride. Today, we're stepping into an alternate universe. A universe where Bitcoin, that elusive digital coin we've all heard about, and maybe dabbled in, crosses the one barrier that's been in the minds of crypto fans for years, the $200,000 mark. This is the kind of news that would dominate every social media feed, plaster the front pages of top financial publications, and ignite dinner table conversations with your grandma. So, what exactly would it look like when Bitcoin hits 200K? How would it affect your day-to-day life, your job, the global economy, and that friend who's been screaming BOI Bitcoin? Buckle up, because we're about to embark on a 15-minute journey full of incredible facts, comedic mishaps, and one-of-a-kind stories that will shed light on this fascinating hypothetical. By the end, you'll not only understand if it's possible, but you'll also see how it could actually happen. And maybe, just maybe, you'll start thinking about your own investing journey in a new light. Let's set the stage. It's 7 a.m. You jump onto your favorite crypto news website to see the headline. Bitcoin shatters records, hits $200,000. Immediately, you wonder if you're still asleep. Spoiler alert, you're not. Twitter, or X, depending on which timeline we're in, has exploded. Even your more traditional news outlets like CNBC are covering it 24/7, with veteran traders scratching their heads and fresh-faced TikTok investors screaming, "I told you so." But let's talk about your immediate reaction. Sure, you might do a fist pump if you've been hodling since the early days. Maybe you're a bit bummed if you sold last week to cover rent. Or perhaps you're just an amused spectator, munching on popcorn and reading the latest memes. However, this is bigger than just a fleeting piece of news. If Bitcoin is truly at $200,000, that means massive economic ramifications both on the global scale and right down to your everyday Starbucks run. Did you know that Bitcoin's total market capitalization once hit over $1 trillion back in 2021? Yup. That was when it hovered around $58,000 per coin. So imagine it at $200,000. We're talking a multi-trillion-dollar market cap, possibly rivaling or exceeding some of the biggest companies in the world. Think Apple, Amazon, and Microsoft, but in a single digital asset. Whether you're a hardcore Bitcoin fan or a skeptic, one thing's certain, this new price milestone changes the financial landscape as we know it. Now, you might ask, but how did Bitcoin get there in the first place? Last time I checked, it was nowhere near 200K. Great question, dear viewer. For a coin to catapult to such dizzying heights, multiple stars must align in the crypto galaxy. Allow me to break it down. Institutional adoption. Remember when big companies like Tesla announced they were buying Bitcoin? That was child's play compared to the wave of adoption we'd see if the price skyrocketed to $200,000. In this scenario, major financial institutions, from pension funds to insurance companies, have jumped on the Bitcoin bandwagon, funneling billions of dollars into the market. Scarcity and halving cycles. Bitcoin was built to be scarce, with a maximum supply of 21 million coins. Every 4 years or so, the network goes through a halving, which cuts the reward for mining new blocks in half. Historically, these halvings have triggered bullish cycles in the Bitcoin market. Did you know that after the 2016 halving, Bitcoin soared from under $1,000 to nearly $20,000 by the end of 2017? So, if we've had another halving or two, the supply shock plus heightened demand could easily push Bitcoin up. Global economic shifts. Perhaps inflation soared or fiat currencies experienced major instability. People around the world may have turned to Bitcoin as a hedge, much like gold. After all, in times of crisis, investors look for assets that aren't controlled by any single government or bank. This shift in sentiment, plus a few more headlines about countries adopting Bitcoin as legal tender, can supercharge demand. Regulatory clarity. Yes, regulations can be a boon rather than a bane. When governments around the world finally clarify their stance on cryptocurrencies, large-scale investors feel safer entering the market. And more money equals higher prices, especially for an asset with a fixed supply. So, is this scenario outlandish? Possibly. But is it impossible? Not necessarily. Bitcoin's journey from a few pennies to nearly $70,000 in 2021 was considered mind-blowing at the time, so to say it can't ever reach $200,000 might be naive. We live in an age where the unimaginable has a funny way of becoming reality. Remember, we put a car in space once. To make this journey feel even more real, Let's introduce a couple of characters whose experiences mirror what many folks might face if Bitcoin soared to $200,000. Alex was that friend we all had, the one who wouldn't stop talking about Bitcoin back in 2013. Annoying as it was, Alex walked the walk. He bought 10 Bitcoins at around $100 each. Fast forward to our hypothetical scenario, and Bitcoin is now at $200K a pop. That means Alex is sitting on $2 million if he held on to all those coins. Does he retire early? Start a foundation to rescue turtles, or maybe buy a modest house in a quiet neighborhood and continue working because he genuinely loves his job? Who knows, but the possibilities are endless. Then there's Jamie, the Eternal Skeptic. Jamie refused to believe in Bitcoin when it was $1,000, then $10,000, then even $50,000. It's a bubble, Jamie would exclaim. Finally, Jamie gives in to OMO, fear of missing out, around $120,000, thinking there's room to grow. Now, at $200,000, Jamie's investment has multiplied, but not without some nail-biting nights, panic sells, and buybacks along the way. Jamie's story reminds us that timing the market is notoriously difficult, and sometimes you just have to do thorough research, manage your risk, and dive in or stay out, based on your conviction. But the real story might be about you, the viewer. Maybe you've been dabbling in Bitcoin or other crypto assets for a while, or maybe you're brand new. Suddenly, your portfolio has ballooned. It's not exactly yacht money, but it's enough to cover your debts and maybe pay off that student loan you've been stressing about. How does it feel to finally see the fruits of your risk-taking? And more importantly, what do you do next? We can't talk about a $200,000 Bitcoin without acknowledging the massive shockwaves that would ripple across the globe. Picture it. Governments might scramble to enact updated regulations to ensure they're not left behind. Traditional banks would likely accelerate their Bitcoin custody services, some already do, offering you ways to deposit your crypto into accounts insured by government agencies. That level of mainstream acceptance would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. Did you know that big banks like JP Morgan Chase initially dismissed Bitcoin, only to later offer Bitcoin fund services to wealthy clients? True story. When money talks, institutions eventually listen, especially when Bitcoin hits unimaginable price levels. Suddenly, your older relatives who used to dismiss crypto might start asking, wait, is Bitcoin that internet money? How do I buy some? Meanwhile, other nations might adopt stricter rules to prevent capital flight or money laundering. It could be a regulatory tug-of-war, with some countries embracing Bitcoin wholeheartedly while others clamp down. We've seen micro-examples of this dynamic for years. One country bans it, another encourages it, and the price fluctuates accordingly. At $200K, that tug-of-war becomes a global spectacle. If Bitcoin hits $200,000, don't be surprised if a wave of altcoins also surge. Historically, when Bitcoin pumps, the entire crypto market tends to follow. Ethereum, the second largest cryptocurrency, might see a price explosion as well, especially with developments in DeFi, decentralized finance, and NFTs. Meme coins could ride the hype train. Remember Dogecoin's wild run in 2021. Now imagine that mania multiplied, but let's not forget traditional assets like stocks, real estate, and precious metals. Some investors might rotate profits from Bitcoin into other areas, fueling mini bubbles across different sectors. Others might see it as a sign of an overheated market and retreat to safer havens. This frenzy can be both thrilling and terrifying, which is why experienced investors always preach diversification and caution. This is also where those who've never invested before might jump in, possibly at the peak. The cycle of fear and greed is alive and well. We've all seen it play out. Someone invests at the top, then panics and sells at a loss when the price dips. The lesson? Whether it's Bitcoin at $200K or $20K, it's critical to understand and have a plan in place. So, we've touched on the immediate reaction. But what about the long game? If Bitcoin stabilizes around $200,000, that might further cement its reputation as digital gold. Over time, we might see Bitcoin used as collateral for large loans or even become a standard part of retirement portfolios. Picture your 401k with a small allocation of Bitcoin, something unthinkable just a decade ago. On the other hand, if Bitcoin hits $200K but then rapidly crashes, it could be the burst of a bubble that sets the market back for years. Crypto veterans have lived through these cycles: the hype phase, the crash, the slow building phase, and then the next wave of mainstream adoption. If history repeats itself, a massive crash post 200K might spook investors, leading to stricter regulations and a smaller pool of traders. In short, the aftermath depends on how well the market digests that new price level. Is it fueled by sustainable growth and real-world usage, or is it driven purely by speculation? As always, the truth might lie somewhere in between. If the thought of Bitcoin at $200,000 makes you want to frantically open a trading app, hold your horses. One of the biggest lessons in all of investing, crypto or otherwise, is that risk management is crucial. We all love hearing stories about the investor who bought Bitcoin at $100 and turned into a millionaire overnight. But we rarely hear about folks who bet the farm at the top and lost it all. Did you know that if you had simply invested $10 per week into Bitcoin over the past 5 years, you'd have a tidy sum right now, regardless of the wild swings? It's called dollar cost averaging, and it's one of the simplest ways to invest without stressing over market timing. This principle applies not just to Bitcoin, but to all kinds of assets, from stocks to index funds. Investing also ties deeply into self-improvement. Think about the discipline it takes to consistently invest over time, the emotional control required not to panic sell, and the willingness to learn about new technologies and market trends. If you're on a quest for personal growth, diving into investing wisely can become a powerful avenue for learning about yourself, your emotions, and your long-term goals. Our entire discussion hinges on one question: what if Bitcoin makes it to 200K? What if scenarios are fun because they let us imagine possibilities without being constrained by what's realistic? Remember how people laughed at the idea of Bitcoin hitting $10,000 back in 2013, and yet it happened. Let's address the elephant in the room. Is Bitcoin's rise to 200K just hype, or does it have merit in real-world applications? Opponents argue that Bitcoin's volatility disqualifies it as a reliable currency. Supporters counter that it's not meant to replace your daily coffee payment method, but rather to serve as a store of value and hedge against government-controlled monetary systems. Over the years, big brands like PayPal, Microsoft, and AT&T have dabbled in accepting Bitcoin payments, proving that there is at least some interest in using crypto for real transactions. Meanwhile, entire blockchain ecosystems have arisen around Bitcoin's younger sibling, Ethereum, where decentralized apps, gaming, and financial products flourish without a central authority. So maybe it's not just about hype. Maybe there's an evolving technological revolution behind the scenes. The question is whether that revolution justifies a $200,000 price tag, and eventually, only time can provide a definitive answer. So, here we are, at the end of our hypothetical journey. You woke up to find Bitcoin at $200,000. Nations panicked or rejoiced, banks adapted. Your friend Alex is now traveling the world, and Jamie is figuring out how to handle newfound gains, while grumbling about not having jumped in sooner. But most importantly, you took a deep dive into how life could change, and how it might stay exactly the same. If nothing else, this scenario reminds us of a few key lessons. Markets can surprise us. If the past decade of crypto has taught us anything, it's that the financial world is full of surprises, both good and bad. Risk and reward are inseparable. Higher potential returns often come with higher risks. No exceptions. People who've really benefited from Bitcoin historically were those who did their research and held on for dear life, through every dip, scandal, and negative headline. Plan for multiple outcomes. You never know what the market will do tomorrow, so it pays to have a strategy, one that acknowledges the possibility of both soaring gains and crushing losses. Personal growth. Investing, like any journey, can teach you about discipline, emotional resilience, and goal setting. Whether or not Bitcoin hits $200,000, these lessons remain invaluable. Now that we've reached the end of this wild scenario, it's your turn to join the conversation. Maybe you have a personal story or a unique perspective on the future of cryptocurrency. While you're at it, tap that like button if you found this video entertaining or thought-provoking, and don't forget to subscribe for more fascinating deep dives into investing, self-improvement, and financial scenarios that'll get your brain buzzing. Who knows? Maybe our next journey will be imagining a world without banks, or exploring what happens if you invest $1 a day for a decade. Until then, keep exploring the possibilities.